All right. Hello? Theo, can you hear me?
Yep.
All right.
So
Evan and Zero.
I am
All
here
right.
mentally and
Very cool. Very cool. Okie dokie. So, chat. Hopefully you can see us now. We're going to go ahead and cover this person named Gutian that made a video about MauLer. But before we do that, I have a couple things to address as we wait for Glib Facsimile to appear. He is our fifth guest today. And we have another who might turn up later. We don't know. No sound. Is that the... Is there no sound?
I'm not getting any sound on
I've got
stream.
no
I'm
sound on
not
the stream.
seeing any. I'm not even seeing any like green rings around our profile pics.
Give it a minute. Says
Seeing
sound is
green
on.
rings.
That'll be good.
Sounds on. Okay. Yeah. All right. Cool. So before we begin, there's a few things I would like to address because, as some of you may know, about 8 days ago, I tried to do a podcast episode where we were going to have a guy talk to Evan about his art is not subjective video that got featured on EFAP. But funny little story. Streamlabs changed my encoder from AMD, which is my graphics card, to software, which overloads the CPU and then causes extreme lag. So we didn't understand what was going on until after we finally quit, and then E-Man Gameplay and we did some diagnostics and figured out, oh, for some reason my encoder was set to software, which I didn't pick myself. So Streamlabs had some sort of update where it fucked that up, I think. So, however, we've got that figured out now. I think that we're looking good. I'm going to keep an eye on the chat, make sure that things are going smoothly. One of the things that I couldn't do on the last stream because of how poorly it went was read out the super chats that I got. I got two super chats, one from James Moore and one from what's your name? Sorry, White Knight Leo, and I actually have them down there on the bottom right hand corner. If you go into the description on the stream, you can follow a link to my Streamlabs tipping page, and you can send super chats there. And if I see them and they're relevant to the current topic of discussion, I will actually read them out as we go, as long as it doesn't disrupt the flow of the conversation. As opposed to just waiting till the very end of the stream to just read out all the super chats. I figured my viewership is not high enough for that to be really a problem. But so the first super chat came from James Moore, who said "Shoe Vader Shoe," referring to Vooter, who was going to come on and talk to Evan, and that had to be postponed, unfortunately. But he'll be on eventually, and we will still talk about Evan's video. That's not a cancellation of that plan. It just simply didn't work out because of the streaming tisms from last week. And then White Knight Leo asked me 3 questions. He said, "Do you know when next EFAP is?" Well, this is probably an outdated question, but I'll go ahead and give an answer. I think that's supposed to be this next Sunday, and it's supposed to be Wolf's last EFAP appearance, I believe, which is
expected for Sunday.
Very, very sad. We could talk about that a little bit, I guess. Theo, do you have any thoughts?
I'm glad he's doing what he thinks is best for him, and I'm glad he's committing to it, I guess. Like I keep saying on the server, no half measures. If he doesn't want to, if he thinks the internet's bad for him, he needs to just cut it all off.
Yeah.
And stick to that. And I'm glad it looks like he's doing that.
Yeah, it's a bummer because I did enjoy his videos and his presence on EFAP, but ultimately if he didn't enjoy it himself and he feels better about himself when he's a nobody, then I want him to do what's best for him. I'm very grateful for the many hours of entertainment that he provided. all the laughs that he provided. I'm thankful for his friendship. I mean, Wolf's the one that pushed for me to come on EFAP in the first place, and I'm very, very grateful for that, of course.
Wolf's the one who picked out that I was in the chat on my first EFAP, so
without Wolf, neither I nor Theo would be here, and I sent Evan's video to MauLer as well. So there's just been this domino effect of people that are decent at argumentation and everything. That people have said, like, Theo, you're a very helpful contribution to EFAP, and the people in the chat would probably think that I am as well. Not to toot my own horn,
I'd hope so.
I mean, I'm a little embarrassed over some of my piss poor argumentation during the Just Right coverage, just because I wasn't expecting to be on that night. I got a 15 minutes notice from MauLer because Wolf was not expected to make it, and he needed a substitute. So I wasn't prepared to take on the Just Right video in a live setting. I was actually working on a script to do like a full on video essay against it, and I basically scrapped that now that EFAP actually covered it in full. But yeah, and then of course we have Evan here as well, and he's blowing up now because he got covered on EFAP recently, and it seems like he's going to be on EFAP at some point, which is awesome. Congratulations, Evan, for that. You deserve it. Evan's content is consistently great. He has a great video on plot holes. He actually, if you go back to EFAP 50 Part 1, the one where I infamously blew up at Brown Table, Evan's actually in the chat warning about the very line that caused me to explode. So, and he...
It's so funny. I made that video and I knew you were going to lose your mind. And when I saw you on the stream, I was like, oh my gosh, that is going to kill him. Because I made that video beforehand. I was like, oh, here it comes.
Well, I mean, it's the funniest thing. It's it's a pretty stupid line, but I don't think I would have reacted as badly if it were a movie that I just didn't give a shit about. But this is a movie that I've been pretty angry about for the past 7 years. So yeah, but no, check out all of Evan's content. The link to his channel is in the description, and in case you guys missed it, I basically promoted him to co-host of the podcast. He's basically the first guy that I contact whenever I'm trying to schedule a stream. So, and then of course, Zero. Zero is I guess the other new guest, of course. Theo has never been on the Southpaw'dcast before until today, and neither has Zero. Zero I just recently met, and his reaction to the video that we're going to be covering today was very, very passionate, and I have a feeling that he's going to make for an entertaining presence on this episode. But I do want to hear his thoughts on Wolf leaving.
Right. Well, I think that I found EFAP first, strangely enough, before I found MauLer or Rags or Wolf individually.
Oh, okay.
I just saw... I found an EFAP link in the recommendations off to the side. I can't remember what I was watching first, but I saw the headline is Mission Impossible Fallout bad, or they were covering Ren's video on Mission Impossible Fallout, and I was watching that, and I was getting really into it. I was a huge fan, and of course I still am. I wouldn't be here otherwise.
Right.
And as I was watching, I think I gathered up why I think the core EFAP lineup works so well. My theory is MauLer is like Leonardo, Rags is like Michelangelo, Wolf is like Raphael, and the guest is often best fitted for that dynamic when they get a Donatello for a guest. So
which would be
Sitch
Theo.
Theo, Sitch, Chad, those are like the best guests at least when I enjoy an EFAP most, it's due to that. So with Wolf leaving, I understand sometimes. I understand that Raphael has to strike out on his own and do his own thing. So I respect that. It's a shame. He really did bring a really unique fire to it every time. So yeah, I understand that Wolf has to go, and he ought to do what he thinks is best, and I respect everything for that. So fare thee well, Wolf. Yep. You were an absolute massive.
And Wolf, if you're hearing this, let me know when when your book is out so that I can promote it and I'll review it. There you go. Now,
Best wishes from me.
Now I noticed that Glib Facsimile is in here. He's that's Clint Eastwood with a Santa doll, is it?
Yes, sure.
Glib...
No, it's a real.
Wait, what?
It's the real Santa.
Oh, it's the real Santa.
Yeah.
Does it smell like Santa or does it smell like beef and cheese though?
It smells like pine trees and peppermint.
Glib Facsimile was last on the 4th Southpaw'dcast. We were covering a couple of videos about Joker that he clearly was not very into, unfortunately, and I felt very bad about that and wanted to have him on for a video that he was really passionate about. And this video from Gutian is just that type of video. So, but
Yes.
But Glib, did you want to say anything about Wolf's upcoming departure from EFAP?
Well, it's happened before.
Of course.
And I just would say that he always has that open invitation to be on, MauLer's YouTube show, and we all enjoy his work. So take his time and whatever he's doing. So, like you were saying, if he's listening, my message would be like, "Hey, man, let's go play some Titanfall."
Yeah, I gotcha. The second question, well, we're like going through a super chat here. The second question from White Knight Leo was, "What's your opinion of Keltec, if any?" I don't have any opinion. I have fired Smith & Wesson, Glock. I fired, I carry a Beretta. I fired Springfield, and I fired CZ. And I don't think I have shot anything else. So I don't have any opinion of Keltec. Which movies would you be able to give a convincing Wolf-style angry rant about? Toy Story 4. Like, that's an instant choice for me. Dark Knight Rises. That's going to be pretty intensely vitriolic. I'm not going to go into a full-on rage, but those are two of the movies that have pissed me off the most. And if you were to ask me this in December of 2017, I would have picked The Last Jedi. I was very, very angry about that movie, and I ranted about it to my family for quite a while, for months on end. So, but that's about it for the super chats that I missed from last week. I'm going to try to keep an eye on those and make sure that I'm, keeping track of them and everything. But I guess that now we are ready to go ahead and cover Gutian finally. So we're all in the watch together, right?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
All right.
I'm sure this is going to be fantastic.
Oh yeah, this is going to be very fun, and it's not going to take us long at all. Well, oh, and Cop Wiseau is in the chat, who is going to take care of any racist musicians or guitar musicians. We actually had the flute musician guy raid our stream last week. That was fun, and I was trying to make Jay a moderator, and the chat lagged, and I guess that I made this fellow named Cop Wiseau my moderator by accident, but he's been a very good man when it comes to being on top of that sort of stuff. Spam in the chat and not abusing his power, thankfully. So,
what a zero to hero story, huh?
Right? By total accident, I'm like, fuck it, he can stay mod. But yeah, so we're gonna go ahead and start now. Before we begin, I do want to point out a couple things. So, not all of us are in complete agreement about objectivity being a thing. I do think that there is such a thing as objective quality. I think you do too, right, Glib?
Well, I have the extremist position on this, where I think everything is objective. I think the perception is subjective, and the emphasis is always put on perception and interpretation of the audience instead of anything objective that's actually in the content or created by. Does that make sense?
Created by what?
Oh, if I cut out, I meant like anything that is like created by people, you could probably objectively analyze.
I'm not even sure if I agree with that. It might be in like more of a middle ground. I wouldn't say I'm completely in the middle between you and Theo. I'm towards you because I do believe there is such a thing as objective quality. But that is an interesting perspective. I'm trying to gauge what everyone's opinions are here. Zero, objective quality, is that a thing to you or no?
Absolutely, it is a thing.
Okay.
I would say I am also dangerously close to being like an objective quality, absolute, not an absolutist, but almost like an extremist for objective value in things. I think that the way that you gauge objective value in something is in direct relation to how well it fulfills a standard due to how it is being applied.
Okay.
How do you judge if a water bottle is a good water bottle? If it doesn't leak and it's easy to, you judge it based on how you apply. If a water bottle has a hole in the bottom, it makes a bad water bottle, but you can use it as a decent funnel, possibly. That kind of thing.
I gotcha.
So
No, that's an interesting way of looking at it. Like that there's a context that could be better than whatever the stated context is based on its usage, aka the bottle.
right, like the bottle used as a funnel. And I would say that if something isn't being directly applied, you can still get, since we are conscious beings, that is what I sincerely believe, we are conscious individual beings, we have the ability to reason the attributes of even inanimate objects and say that this is best used for this list of things, and its objective quality could be inferred universally based on its most reasonable applications. A brick makes a pretty good doorstop, even if no one ever made a brick with the intention of it being used as a doorstop.
Right.
That's my general opinion on the matter, and as we watch this video, I'm sure it'll be tested from multiple angles, and I welcome all.
All right then.
Can I add something to that? Just
Absolutely.
I understand it's kind of out of order, but
That's okay.
in the video that I'm producing right now, a statement that I make about objective and subjective in response to Patrick Willems is that when you're talking about a film, it really doesn't matter if it's objective or subjective. What matters is whatever decision that you're making, is it in service of the story? Is it in service of whatever the art is based around? Especially with film, it's all about story. So the objective subjective argument, this dichotomy, only exists because MauLer said something was objectively bad. That's the entire point of contention with the subjective side. That's what they're arguing for. So if we get underneath that, I think people are going to find out that there's so much stuff that's being missed out on because people are upset that somebody said something was objectively bad.
Especially something with the types of values and messages as The Last Jedi. Because I've
See the best.
I mean, I've heard lots of movies be referred to as objectively bad before The Last Jedi came out, and I cannot remember there being as intense of a debate about this. I mean, I'm sure that, like, I'm aware, you know, if you Google, like, objectively bad, you can find debates on, like, forums and shit dating back to, like, 2013. So I get that, and maybe it's just because I was introduced to all of this through The Last Jedi and MauLer, and maybe it's I'm this passionate about it because I'm seeing shitty movies like The Last Jedi being made, and I have a standard, and I'm noticing that a lot of people seem to agree, like, yeah, The Last Jedi and Ghostbusters and Charlie's Angels and all those other shitty movies, they're being praised by critics because they push some sort of agenda, but in actuality, they're just terribly written, and it's not resonating with mainstream audiences for a reason. And so now I don't want to go on my soapbox about objectivity yet, and I want Theo to go ahead and have his turn, because you know Theo, he just can't get enough. He just can't stop talking. You know, he can't get enough of talking. He is the most talkative person on this panel. It is killing him right now to say something. But no, seriously, go ahead, Theo.
That's me. My voice is gonna die. Jeez. No. I am of the position that any form of value judgment is inherently subjective by the nature of what value is. That's the core of my position, and I don't think you can have an assessment of quality without a value judgment in there. But the best part is, I completely agree with what Glib said earlier, that the entire contention is over the use of a word, and that everything underneath that contention around the word That's what actually matters.
It's like they're trying.
Yeah.
It's like they're trying to like stall from actually talking about whether The Last Jedi was well written, and they're just
Yes.
hanging up on this semantics thing. And ultimately, I don't give that much of a fuck about that particular word. You can change it from objective to subjective. Now I'm of the disposition that it's like no, there is like a type of objective quality, and I'm actually making a whole video that's currently, I think I've got like 9,000 words written down, and there's a ton more to go. So it's going to be a very long video. I'm gonna sort of like try to argue this this perspective and talk about like why this standard is important. And Evan, I'm going to go ahead and finish this, and then I'll let you go. My thing is, every story requires continuity. Now, continuity is, it's not just like, for instance, how much drink is in a person's glass. It's
Wait. Let me interrupt you really quick.
Okay.
Do you mean continuity or consistency?
So, what I mean by continuity is, without it, what you have basically just a string of random disconnected scenes. So you take like a shot from Infinity War, splice it with a shot from Mission Impossible Fallout, splice it with a shot from Lord of the Rings. You have no connecting narrative, basically, right? So every story requires all of the scenes to like lead up to one another and build up to a conclusion, basically. So for a story to function, you need there to it requires abiding by what has happened, what has taken place in previous scenes. So because continuity is such an essential to storytelling, it's like the more, because you can follow, or you can abide your own continuity more or less consistently, right? There are stories that are very consistent with it. There are stories that are not consistent with it at all, and are rather just the total opposite of consistent, right? So if you're trying to tell a story that is meant to like actually have a narrative, and it's like all the scenes are going from one to the next, and everything, and they're connected, and they're trying to build up to this conclusion, but you cannot actually abide your own continuity consistently, then your story is very poorly written, objectively. That's my take on it, like in summation. And I previously had a different take, and I had a talk with MauLer the other day about it, and he broke that down to me, and that makes sense to me. Like that's an essential part of storytelling that you cannot get rid of. So that's my perspective, and I respect everyone else's perspective here, as well as Evan's, which I want him to go ahead and come in. And oh wait, I noticed that BuzzAxe is available. Well, he's in the chat. Buzz, if you want to hop into the call, just say so in the chat, and I'll add you. But go ahead, Evan. Talk about your thoughts on objective value, whether or not you think it exists.
Well, obviously I made my own video, and I definitely think it exists. My position essentially is that I think that quality is determined by objective references. That's objective references are all that we can agree on when it comes to a film. I say it in my video, it's we can all agree on what is definitively on screen in a film, and using that you can come to some form of a conclusion. And I think if you're just sticking to the references and you come to a conclusion based on consistency, I agree with the idea of consistency or continuity, whatever the word is. Mm-hmm. Essentially, that's how that people can agree on things, and that's what I would define as objective, as long as you're not changing anything or manipulating facts. So,
sure.
Can I just add something to something that you said earlier? Southpaw was
absolutely.
You were talking about how if you splice random clips in, then there's not continuity or consistency.
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting is that the entire like montage theory that people reference when they're making these videos, like video essays and stuff, is all about association
Mm-hmm.
with what you're seeing on screen and in what order.
Right.
And Alfred Hitchcock did a really good little video explaining how if you splice in different images and different things into a sequence, then the sequence's meaning changes. So there could be there's inherently a subjective relationship between the audience and the picture, but there is an objective decision that's made by the director, by the writer, for better or for worse, on how to present that and what is being presented. So if we lean only into interpretation, then we have these video essayists that make these videos. And as soon as we start going back into what is actually being done to create the material, the people making these video essays have no idea how that works. So they'd be out of their wheelhouse and making statements that they couldn't prove. So they're going to fall back on this subjectivity over and over again because that's their part of the bargain that they understand. And they're going to be upset that somebody is spotting something objectively in the content that they aren't. So maybe it's just jealousy. I'm not sure. But as I said before, we're just hanging on this idea that we can't make statements that are going to be counter to what they're saying because we're not objective.
Yeah. I whether or not you believe that objective quality exists, you can absolutely make a judgment about a film's quality that's divorced from your own personal feelings or biases towards it. That's
you can try, but even though I'm on the opposite side of this in many ways with Theo, I agree that philosophy states that you can't make a value judgment. That's not going to be subjective. Mm-hmm. So how do we avoid a value judgment, but actually at the same time we're still discussing objectivity without the biases that you mentioned?
Sure. All right then. Well, there is one thing that all five of us have in common, and it says that there's a sixth person in the watch together, which is interesting to me.
I think I double cliented it by accident, so I clicked on the link and it opened in a different type of web browser, and then I second guessed myself and clicked it again and opened it in Chrome.
Okay.
So I think two of those users.
Alrighty. Well, one thing that all five of us have in common is we think that this video is terrible. There is another person. So Vooter, the guy that was going to talk to Evan about his video, he is in the group that we're in. He's not available currently. He could come on later, but he messaged me yesterday about how much he hates this video, and basically Vooter was saying that just because he agrees that there is no such thing as objective quality, doesn't mean that he still thinks that this video presents terrible arguments for it. And Theo, do you want to give any preliminary thoughts?
Yeah, even if I was to call him, I don't even want to call him right about objectivity or anything, because fundamentally his arguments are so terrible that it's just they're not right. You can't call someone correct if they argue for something that is, I guess, technically correct this badly.
Yeah. And one other thing, I guess. So the person that we're covering is apparently a male to female transgender woman. Now, I did not know that when I first watched it. I just thought it was a guy with long hair because, I mean, they have a very deep voice, and there isn't much that indicates that they're trying to be a woman to me, personally. But apparently I was wrong, and they are trans or non-binary or whatever, and they don't use male pronouns. They use gender-neutral and female pronouns. I'm going to respect that. I think that given what we've seen, how we've seen Gutian act on Twitter recently towards MauLer, and in reaction to the basically the responses that she's gotten from this video, I feel inclined to just say she's a complete asshole, but that doesn't mean that I am going to disrespect her pronouns or whatever. Basically, I don't want to give any ammunition to the people who are on her side to say that we're a transphobic podcast or something and that we are attacking this video because she's trans or whatever. That's not what we're doing. And to be clear, I'm not going to enforce this rule on everyone else. If they prefer using male pronouns, I'm not going to force them to respect her pronouns, or else they'll get kicked. I'm not going to do that. I believe in free speech, not coerced speech, but I do hope that the people in the chat and in this call will follow suit and be more like respectful about it and try to what is it there's a figure of speech here, like
dead name or something,
putting your best foot forward or something. Maybe it's like just lead by example. We're not assholes, you know. We won't attack this person for being trans or insult them or mock them or whatever. That's coming from me. I don't know how everyone else feels here. So
I can agree with that.
I feel like nobody has a right to demand a pronoun because that's not how the English language works. If you want a pronoun, you have one. It's what your parents call you. Okay? And so I'll call you fish if I feel like it. And if you have a problem with that, you got to deal with it because of freedom of speech. Now, that said, I don't care. I'll call this person whatever they want. You know, but that's the basis for my perspective.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I, like Southpaw, had a similar first impression with this video, but then just to make sure, I did some research and checked out Gutian's Twitter and found out how Gutian self-identifies, and so be going forward like Southpaw recommends in this video. Otherwise, I would be objectively wrong about how Gutian identifies. And that's
that opens up a whole can of worms about identity.
Boy.
But I think we should just move on because it's not actually relevant to the art.
right. Well, I'll clarify that later, but that's not here nor there at the moment.
No,
I will
I'm not trying to. Oh, sorry. I don't mean
I
to
will
stop.
call this person out for baiting, though. Like, this is the most obvious bait you've ever seen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Straight up vitriol everywhere. It's like, this video screams like, please talk about me. Please.
Chancellor Theo, bait is our speciality.
Michael Nowacki saying, Southpaw, I don't want to create fuel for them. Also, Southpaw, you can misgender her if you like. Look, I'm not going to force someone to use the pronouns that this other person chooses. It's like, I'm not the pronoun police, okay? I'm going to respectfully request that they do. I'm not going to force them to. So, anyways, are we ready to actually start the video? People are asking. People have been asking if MauLer is going to cover this on EFAP. I don't know. Okay, I don't know if they will be.
Hello.
Hopefully, we do a good enough job that they don't have to.
Yeah.
So before we start, can we break down the background first, or should we get into that later?
Oh, we could go ahead and do that.
Jesus Christ.
Because I have some words about this. Okay, where first? So I see the ANCAP colors on the red stripe there. There's a black square in the bottom right.
Oh yeah, I see
half
that.
of it diagonally sliced is black. That's no, that's not ANCAP. That's ANCOM. Was it anarcho-communism?
Yes,
That
it
is
is
quite a
anarcho-communism.
Oh, boy.
Which is hilarious because you can't have anarchists and communists living in the same state. Doesn't make any sense.
You know, I love the irony of an anarcho-communist basically advocating like, no, everyone's opinions are equal when we know for a fact that communists are not exactly the most tolerant people towards alternative opinions.
Yeah.
No. And just look at Ukraine. They had a anarchist collective, and the communists came in and killed them all.
Yep.
I mean, they didn't allow that to exist because it's outside of the discourse that's acceptable within the, what do they call it? There's a specific word for when they all get together and have their little Boy Scout jamboree and decide what the country's going to do for the next year or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, funny to see the some anarchy symbols on the background. Peace sells, but who's buying? I like that band. Justify those that died. I don't like that band nearly as much. So my favorite one, personally, is the hashtag on the hashtag for Chile / Bolivia / Brazil / Hong Kong / Russia. I understand that. There's a lot of civil unrest in those countries, though they are from different origins in each one. My question is, where's Venezuela?
Where is Venezuela? That is
because I'm thinking Venezuela ain't doing great right now.
No.
They're not happy. No, there are, in fact, you can just look up Venezuela armored car, and you could see some really nasty footage that some videos just have to censor it because it's getting that ugly over there. So if it's getting that ugly, you might want to voice some kind of solidarity. If you're also going to voice solidarity for something like, I think out of everything on this list is the least cruel of all these things happening, because Chile is like from what I understand, Chile is about economic inequality. That's a fine topic to debate, and there's a lot of people who are discontent with certain economic decisions that are being made. I get that, but not nearly as bad as that armored personnel carrier just jumped up on this curb and flattened 3 or 4 people, and it's on camera on Reuters. But no. For Chile, Venezuela, what's that?
Well, I just wanted to say, based on this topic that we're talking about, if you look at all the stars, they all have sad faces. So if you're an American and you're watching this, or you're watching Gutian's video, he's saying that your state sucks or something like that. And he's not American. And I believe it is, an infraction to desecrate the flag by drawing on it and writing on it. So right off the bat, he's baiting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is bait in my family, because based on what we believe, if we saw a flag in that state, it would have to be retired respectively by being burned.
Yeah, exactly. And you have there's a ceremony for that too, and that, I think, in essence, speaks to the major difference between a person that is doing this kind of content and this kind of with these kinds of like philosophies and principles and politics versus somebody that has more, I don't want to say conservative or traditional, but I want to say that they have a tendency to conserve tradition and try and uphold a principle that existed before you, instead of somebody trying to create a revolution and create the new paradigm constantly. That's like the big difference between these two perspectives. I think they are going to come out even in art, because we're here valuing the foundation of film, the foundation of storytelling, the myths that are constantly cycling through our consciousness as people. As we get older, as we go through the ages, we all go through the same heroic myths that our fictional characters go through. It's just that we go through it in the context of our own lives. And then we're discussing people like this that are anarcho-communists or leftists or whatever it is that they personally identify with that's supposed to be progressive or revolutionary, and they're going to try and focus on that edge, that bleeding edge that they're trying to build, because they're trying to build this utopia. So whatever their version of perfection is, it has to be able to destroy the paradigm that we're trying to consistently protect, like the continuity of James Bond or a Star Wars franchise. We're not trying to create this new revolutionary vision of it, but anyway, I think that those two sides are going to keep coming up in this conversation.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because so Evan points out in Jack Saint's video on like objectivity and shit, which we could probably cover in a later South podcast. I'm sure that MauLer will get to that eventually as well. But Jack Saint points out that The Room is not objectively a bad movie, because if you interpret it as a comedy, then it is a good movie. The problem is that that's ignoring the reason why The Room is so funny, because it is an incompetently made movie on just about every level. And so,
well, hold on. Sorry, I don't mean to.
You can go first. Yeah,
Step on you. I just wanted to say that if you actually look at, if you divide it up into department, not every department is incompetent. What's funny about The Room to me visually, as like from my technical background, is that it's like shot on film and not everything is that bad. And then Tommy Wiseau comes in and he goes like, "Oh, hi, doggy," and you're like, "What?
Yeah.
What's going on in this scene?"
Sure, sure. Well, I mean,
Well,
well, go ahead.
okay. One of the things on that I would just ask Jack Sane on is like, is the only qualitative statement that can be made about a comedy if it makes you laugh? Like that's what he implied with that. He's saying like the movie's funny, therefore it's a good comedy. I'm like, that's not necessarily true. There's plenty of other comedies that are like effective because of other reasons. Then they just make you laugh. So it's like one of those things where it's like that's a whole area of discussion that he just breezes by, and I have a lot of problems with that.
Well, it just
So-
it just seems to go from saying like, okay, you can't say that this is a bad movie because all that it is just a movie that's like told it's made unconventionally, I guess. It doesn't abide the arbitrary standards that society has set upon filmmaking. You know, like any movie that fails to live up to that standard could be simply interpreted as, oh no, they decided that they didn't have to live up to that standard in the first place, so that was the intent. And I don't agree with that notion at all.
There are films that do that on purpose, like Monty Python and the Holy Grail. That's what I go back to all the time. That movie is done the way it is by design. That wasn't an accident. And like, so you're like, this is a quality film because clearly the film is self-aware and it understands what it is.
And everything that you know about The Room's production, if you just read The Disaster Artist and all the other, like you look at all the interviews that the other actors did on this movie, it's clear that no, this was actually like a passion project, and they were trying to. Tommy Wiseau was trying to make like a drama that he thought would win an Oscar for outstanding drama.
I think he kept it in theaters for like a weekend longer because he was hoping it would get an Oscar nomination.
Yeah, it's like there was a delusion of grandeur behind it, and so how awful it ended up being, and like in so many funny and weird ways, like that's why The Room is a funny movie, and I just. I don't like this idea of, oh, even though there's mountains of supporting evidence to suggest that that Tommy Wiseau was trying to make a drama here and not a comedy, that there are some people that are just trying to go, oh, well, you know, if you just interpret it as a comedy, it's a good movie. Like, no. Again, it's a good comedy because it is such a poorly made drama. It was intended to be considered a drama, and it failed epically. And it's funny because of that. So that's where I stand.
It's funny because of its objective failures.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Well, here's the thing. Somebody can laugh at farty farty bum bum. Like, you could just say that. Or we could be discussing how Dave Chappelle masks his setups and punchlines and callbacks by threading a story through them. So right when he's about to say something and you're listening to his story and you're seriously invested, he'll drop the punchline on you.
Right.
And then he'll use that point to transition to a different joke, and he'll be working that joke and setting you up. And then the punchline that comes that you aren't expecting again is going to be a callback that references a previous point that he just made, which doubles up on the joke. So, like, if you're a comedian, objective or subjective, you see that there's this sort of function that a joke has, and it works a certain way. And there's a range of different joke types. And that's why a lot of comedians, I think, will tell younger comedians, cut out the expletives, because you can't tell if your joke is funny or if using a curse word is funny for people.
Right.
You can't tell if it's that you're throwing when you make the stupid joke that's making the drunk people laugh, or if people are actually admiring your craft. Mm-hmm. And I think all of us are in the discussion of, I think we're in it for the discussion of craft because it helps us learn, it helps us refine our taste, and it helps educate other people that are missing out on things. And I don't think that that's what Gutian is here to do. I think he's trying to destroy, decimate, annihilate.
Yeah.
The waters. Just,
Right. So before we dive back in, can you all hear me? I switched up some. I'm still on.
Yep.
You sound good. Theo needs to be turned up a little bit, Theo.
Yeah, God, Theo, you have to increase your volume if you're going to talk over every.
God damn it.
Yeah. So, three last things that I know I want to bring up about the background before we really dive into the video and go full throttle on.
Uh-huh.
So Elon sucks. That's interesting, but that's neither here nor there. Only God is objective. I think there's an interesting debate to be had there. The highlight of this entire background is hidden up in the top right. So ACAB 1312. That is a fun little nugget to find because that's a famous acronym, especially among ANCAP or ANCOM more circles. It stands for All Cops Are Bastards.
Ooh.
And fun fact, that is officially on the Anti-Defamation League site as officially listed as hate speech. So let's
So
be
everybody
careful.
report him to YouTube.
Fighting
No,
that.
So,
Okay.
so this is
No reporting. Go
I
ahead.
know. I'm just.
well. So
but
what you're saying is that's basically like the leftist version of 1488.
Arguably, yeah, it's a similar type of. Should I say dog whistle? I hate the term dog whistle. It is one of those little secrets. It's kind of like if you go on like one of those edgier subreddits, like the I'm going to hell for this subreddit,
Yeah.
and you'll see someone mention something about 13% in relation to 50%.
Mhm.
That's another one of those like edgier codes in like a joke form. Or if you go on a left-leaning subreddit, then you'll see one that mentions a certain percentage. I can't remember, and it just someone starts a comment like for this percentage, and then someone answers like and do one word at a time of cops are guilty of domestic abuse, and they have this meme that they all know word for word, and so they just they cover each other's words for it, kind of like that. So ACAB kind of does that. So that helped color my perception going into the video. So now we are on board with my personal hellish journey into this pocket of madness. Oh boy.
yeah.
So
I
that's
just
all
want to
have.
say that it's hard to agree with that. It's hard to disagree that all cops aren't bastards, but we love you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We're just messing around.
Well, the one thing I'll say about the only God is objective part, I'm pretty sure that that's like they're trying to say so objectivity doesn't exist and God doesn't exist. Like there's some sort of a connection there, if you get what I'm saying. But I think that was the point of the flag. But hey, that's just my interpretation. It's just my subjective interpretation, okay? And if Gutian tries telling me that it means something else, I'm going to invoke death of the author and just say, no, you're trying to say that neither God nor objectivity exists. So
Let's do it.
yep, let's do it. Finally, we are going to get past 1 second of this video, of this 19-minute video. Get ready, folks.
Guys, gals, and M-pals, and welcome to the definitively true side of YouTube.
Fine.
I guess I should pause that just in case the copyright fucks.
I'll do it myself.
Oh boy, I can't wait to hear how much MauLer is mentioned in this
Look
response.
at all this great fan art.
Yeah,
Right.
it's
The music
Good
and
rat.
on long.
all right. Refresh. Let's see how this works.
Fingers crossed.
So this came up for a sec. Stream dead. Nope.
Is it up?
He says he's got audio. It buffers. It worked. Okay. So
Looks good to
chat.
me.
It
Looks like we're good.
Okay, cool.
So just so you guys know, it changed back to software in the middle of the stream somehow. So it might happen again. If it, just know that we're going to be keeping an eye on chat, and we're going to, if you guys are hitting F like that, that helps notify us that we're having some technical difficulties, and that allows me to basically I hit end stream, and then I go into my settings and make sure that AMD is picked instead of software. So don't worry, we've got this figured out thanks to E-Man's diagnostics. So okay, and we'll make sure not to continue the video when we're seeing the Fs in the chat. So
When
all right, refresh, damn it.
So times the chart.
F's in the chat all over the place.
Yep. Hopefully it stays this way. All right.
maybe we'll have to do a driver
Well, I mean, hopefully this works. Maybe I'll just keep it up like this. All right. Folks, can you hear us? It lives? Almost working now? It seems to be
Almost
working now.
working.
No.
Okay. So I'm gonna...
God, wait.
Yeah, okay, it says keep... So Alex
Oh,
Brave just said keep talking.
Okay, can we talk about games as like a dummy question to just fill the content to make sure that like the stream is
Yeah.
Dead
that work?
again.
All about
Nope,
video
dead
games.
again? Well,
You're gonna have to reinstall your driver.
reinstall my driver.
Yeah, I mean, if it's clicking off, I can't think of like.
People are saying that they hear. Chat's coming
That's
in.
bizarre.
Yes, we're back.
No, it died again.
Testing.
Chat
then
said
the
we're
video
back.
lags
Everybody
again.
audio,
Yeah.
audio good.
Keep speaking. I no longer hear anything. Gone again. Heard you for a moment. I did, but dead now. Did E-Man Gaming save you? No, he's at the office. Got a yes. Have you tried forcing an unexpected reboot? No. What the fuck is going on? This ain't seem like it going to be fixed. Bullshit.
It doesn't. It does it not work when you're using software mode? You can't use X264 at the low latency.
No, I can't.
Ultra fast.
There it goes again. It's
Oh.
back and now it lives. Stuttering though, now it's dead. Streaming from Gulag. Alive, it lives. Okay. Working for me at
The
the moment.
YouTube police
Dead.
have caught us.